hour number 3 on a Buffalo Victory Monday. Chris Brown, Steve Tasker with you, and happy to welcome in now Bills radio color analyst, former Bills center Eric Wood, who for several weeks, maybe even stretching back to the end of last season, was asking for more snaps under center, Steve. What did we get yesterday? More snaps under center. Was Eric Wood sending memos to Ken Dorsey? Who knows? Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing great. And those under center plays, as we noted throughout the broadcast, Chris, I would reference the play as an under center play. We don't always do that, but look, it always feels better when it works. It always makes you sound smarter when it does work out. But Bills mixed it in a little bit yesterday and had a heck of a day on offense.
Yeah, what was the efficiency of Josh is kind of the big story, plus the emergence of James Cook as a big part of the offense. And some of that may be due to going under center and using the run game a little bit more than they have in the past, the 12 personnel. But Josh starting the game with 12 straight completions certainly gets him off to the nice start.
Yeah, he didn't have an incompletion until the 4th and 1 that was failed at the goal line. And then they get the ball right back after a 3 and out, and then they score right before the half. And so Josh was extremely efficient yesterday, and everyone wanted to see how Josh would respond. Like you have the most watched Monday Night Football game in NFL history, and Josh has 4 turnovers. So he goes from being top 3 in MVP odds to everybody's punching bag for the week, and then he comes out and has maybe one of the most efficient games of his career. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, extremely accurate with the football. And even with his very few, I believe he was between 83 and 84% completion rate, and that was including throwaways, which we don't always see from Josh. But I thought yesterday was the perfect example of Josh taking what the defense gives him, and then at times, like we saw late with the play down the field to Gabe Davis when Josh is on the run, yes, we want Josh to be aggressive. We always do, just being a little bit more calculated. And yesterday was a perfect example of the blueprint of what you want to see from Josh Allen. And then you mentioned James Cook as well. And the second half of last season, I thought James Cook's vision took just a whole new step. You come from the college game, you're not used to NFL schemes in the run game. Sometimes it's hard. You hand off on that zone and you have the whole field that you could go to, but it's about reading the defense, figuring out where you're going to go. And so we saw that second half of last season, and then James Cook yesterday, he looked excellent. Chris mentioned it throughout the broadcast that there's times where James Cook, even on an NFL field, just has a different gear from everyone else. And there was times where he just left guys in the dust yesterday, and he had a really, really productive game.
All right, so taking the efficiency of the offense one step further, Eric, we've mentioned this on the show a few times, but last year, Patrick Mahomes, facing a lot of cover 2 shell and top-down defenses, adopts a more efficient passing game style, especially after losing Tyreek Hill, rides it all the way to the Super Bowl. We saw Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, tired of getting sacked 60 times a season, adopts a get the ball out quick with Zach Taylor style, and they ride it all the way to the AFC title game. I know this may not please fans that are looking for style points and Josh chucking it all over the field, but this is a way that you can win not only in the regular season, but even in the postseason against really good defenses, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And Josh yesterday, whether it was Davis or Diggs, the tight ends, there was 9 different guys that caught passes yesterday, and it simply was, okay, you can't cover every space of the field. You're not going to let us take the deep shots. You don't want to get blown out early on the road over in Western New York, so you're going to keep your safeties high. Okay, well, on this play, generally they were keeping the rookie corner and off coverage, and then Marcus Peters would be up and closer to press coverage. Okay, well, we have free access over here. I'm just going to take that. And then as the season goes on, and assuming the Bills just continue to take what the defense is giving them, well, eventually you got to get more aggressive. And we talked about this last year after the Bills playoff game against Cincinnati. It seemed like the Bills were just giving Cincinnati too much of the underneath stuff. Well, eventually you got to come up and press them, or else they're just going to continue to sustain drives and score points. And that's when you get your shots down the field. So while it may look like this for a couple weeks, eventually you have to bring the guys up, or else you're going to get 274 yards of passing and a very efficient day for the offense. and then you start taking your chances, and then you take the calculated shots down the field.
Yeah, and that's really the next step. If the Bills and Josh can continue to do this high efficiency thing, complete 75, 80% of his passes, and just put together these 11 play, 15 play drives. What is the next thing the defenses do? Are they going to start taking away the bubble screens? They're going to start sitting on routes. They're going to start daring them to go over the top. How does your offense evolve as this season goes? What are your expectations?
Right. Then it becomes taking advantage of, as soon as the defense takes a risk, okay, now I recognize this. Okay, now here comes our shot. It's the alert at the line of scrimmage that we've seen from Josh all the time. Hey, alert, alert. Okay, now we're getting to our shot because now I'm recognizing that one of these safeties is coming down to compensate for either man-to-man coverage, a whole player in the middle, or a blitzer coming off one of the edges or up the middle. And so you recognize that, and then you really punish the defense when they get too aggressive.
Eric, the run game, you mentioned James Cook already. What about Harris and Murray and the way they were able to run in the red zone yesterday? That not only kept them on schedule, I think for a lot of Bills fans who love Josh Allen, they know it's taking hits off of his body at the same time. Just maybe what you saw, not only from the two backs with some power running in between the tackles, but the way the line was able to open up holes for them as well down there.
Yeah, last year when you had Singletary and Cook, you have two finesse backs, neither of them really going to punch it in down in the red zone with power. And so who do you use? You use your 245-pound quarterback. Well, as Josh progresses throughout his career, they want to use him less and less in that role. And so you bring in two physical runners like Harris and Murray, and those guys were an incredible complement to Cook yesterday. A great mix of speed and size and power from both those guys. And look, when you have 8 yards to go to get a touchdown and it's 1st and goal, when you have a guy that can fall forward like both those guys can, you grab half the yards, you get the 2nd and 4 from the 4 without even much of a hole. Those guys are just falling forward and picking up half the distance to go. And then I thought the offensive line did an incredible job yesterday. Look, across the country, and the way you can grab plays. Thank God there wasn't as many analysts on Twitter when I was playing and breaking down each and every snap and pulling individual plays out, because they could have made a fool out of me like they try and do with offensive linemen each and every week. But look, Spencer Brown took a lot of criticism last week, but the way he rebounded against an all-pro tackle in Max Crosby, and yes, I realize there was chips, there was tight ends to his side, and they understand where Max Crosby was on each and every play. But besides the one quarterback hit that got called back because that ended up in an interception, gets called back because of a penalty, Max Crosby didn't do a whole lot yesterday. And that's coming off of it after a week where against the Broncos on only 43 pass attempts, he was in the back. He was causing havoc, whether a sack, a pressure, a hurry, on over 25% of the dropbacks.
So let's flip it over to the other side of the ball. One of the guys the guy that stood out yesterday, there was two of them, but it was Ed Oliver and Matt Milano. Milano's interception, we're going to see that for decades because it's going on the highlight reel for this season. It was an unbelievable play to pluck that ball off the reigning rushing champ of the NFL, just to go out and bully it away from the guy. And I don't know that I would have been able to think fast enough to even do that, let alone execute the interception like it was. Plus, Ed Oliver played with a high motor yesterday, spent a lot of time in the Raiders' backfield. As we have seen before with guys like Ed, he doesn't always get stats to back up how effective he was, but he had a really nice game.
Yeah, we'll start with Matt Milano. And me and Brownie were talking about it during the broadcast. So generally, when you have a very physical running back who's getting a check down, all you're worried about is not getting embarrassed. Okay, he's going to catch the football. I'm going to wrap him up so he can't get any momentum going. And maybe I jar the football loose. Maybe it's a pass breakup. Matt Milano, in a split-second decision, decides to wrap his arms over the top of his shoulders, which Josh Jacobs isn't expecting that. That's part of the reason it happened is no running back's expecting someone to be reaching over the top of them to grab that football. And so he makes that incredible play. He had a nice interception in game one. He's constantly pointing out different plays that a team's doing. His play recognition is absolutely incredible. It reminds me a lot of Luke Kuechly when we would play against Luke, and the snap's about to happen, and all of a sudden he's pointing to right where you're about to go and alerting the rest of the defense where the play's going. And then Ed Oliver, as you mentioned, he set the pace for the defense from the very first snap. They had a shotgun run to Josh Jacobs. He drives back Greg Van Roten 4 yards. Greg Van Roten essentially makes the tackle with his backside against Josh Jacobs, and that's the first play of the game. I mean, that set the tone for the entire day. And so Ed Oliver, the way he could penetrate, use his quickness, that's why the Bills rewarded him with a big boy contract this offseason, and he really showed up in the home opener.
And it wasn't just him. I mean, it was clear that the Bills' game plan defensively was to neutralize Jacobs and not let him keep the Raiders on schedule down and distance-wise. I mean, the guys up front certainly did a nice job, but it looked like there were some, run blitz calls in there from Coach McDermott. What do you make of, the mix of calls that there were to stop the running of Josh Jacobs?
Yeah, Sean McDermott's done a nice job through 2 games of bringing safeties off the edges, slanting the line to keep the offense guessing at times. But it's tough when you're trying to analyze the Bills' defense. Matt Milano and Bernard, they play downhill so fast that at times you're thinking, are they blitzing or are they just triggering that fast? And when you have the size that the Bills do at the defensive tackle position, it's hard for those offensive linemen to disengage that fast because you're setting up a double team and then getting to a linebacker. Okay, well, now you have Milano and Bernard triggering faster than most linebackers I ever went against in my career, which then, okay, now I can't double team correctly. So then you see and it all works in unison. So now you have the penetration from the defensive lineman because you can't truly double team because the linebackers are triggering so fast. And then you're getting Bernard and Milano making tackles for 2-yard losses from 5 yards deep. I mean, that's tough to do in the NFL.
So you got this game under your belt, and we were talking earlier, you don't know really how this schedule shapes up until after it's all done. So you look back and you think, okay, we got a Raiders team by 4 touchdowns. We probably should have beaten the Raiders by 4 touchdowns. When it's all said and done and the Raiders are picking in the top 5 of the draft, we can look back on this game as, it's the way it should have been. Going forward, though, there's no easy outs. I mean, you look at this Washington Commander team coming up, and they've got some dudes up front, just like the rest of these teams are all trying to get. The Jets, the Dolphins, the Washington Commanders, all of these teams are really putting together even the Bills. They're trying to put together a front four that's impressive, and the Washington guys have got a lot of traits up there.
They do. They have a super talented defensive line. They've invested a ton of draft capital into that defensive line. And you're right, Steve. That's been the blueprint around the NFL. How do I get guys up front that can rush the passer to where these quarterbacks have gotten so good? The rules where you can't touch the receivers down the field. Okay, it's so hard to play coverage in the NFL, so I need 7 guys back there. I can't bring pressure consistently like they did when I was playing. It seemed like every third down was a different blitz package. Nowadays, it's line games up front. You mix up the 4-man rush, but you got to keep 7 guys back there most of the time. And so Washington is right along that blueprint with Jonathan Allen and Young and the rest of that crew. So this Bills O-line will have their hands full again this week.
Eric, before we let you go, you've got your charity event tonight, so why don't you just kind of share with the listening audience what you got on tap? I don't know if there's any tickets left. That thing usually sells out, but why don't you fill everybody in?
Yeah, so the Evan Wood Fund that benefits Oshaya Children's Hospital, we have our annual event, Flights and Bites at Resurgence Brewery tonight. I believe all the tickets are sold out, but would love anyone listening in that would love to come next year to either sponsor or buy a ticket to the event. We got a band in from Nashville. We got a ton of people up from Louisville and Cincinnati and a bunch of people from around the community. So we'll get out and support local families. All the money stays right here in Western New York, benefiting families that have sick children here.
Sounds great, Eric.
Thanks,
good luck
Eric.
with the event tonight. We'll see you there, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Sounds good. Chris, are we going to get you not on the microphone to MC or host it all tonight? What's your go-to song if I can get the band to play it?
Well, I'm a Black Crowes fan, so they got a little hard to handle. I could help you with that one.
All right,
Gosh.
I'll try make that happen.
I just totally sold myself down the river,
I
man.
will expect a video of that.
No. We don't need any of that.
I appreciate
none of
it.
that. All
Thank
right,
you for
Eric.
that.
Thanks for putting me on the spot. Appreciate that so much. We'll see you tonight.